So I want to talk about why prophecy exists in the Dune universe and what these guys have to do with it. So in Dune, there's this idea that people with an extremely high level of training and who are able to harness latent ability have the power to deal with and manipulate their own bodies at the molecular level, right? And this is something that comes up a lot in the book. This is actually the hidden subtext in movie versions of Dune as to why Jessica is able to convert the water of life. And even though the book doesn't exactly explain that this is what's going on, I think there's an implication that this has to do with the quantum realm and that being able to see at this level allows people to see something like quantum possibilities. One of the things that's actually interesting about the book is that towards the end of the book, as Paul gains more and more of this ability, he's always seeing all of these possibilities that flow off of different moments, things that are possible, things that are not possible. And that's all interesting kind of within the context of Paul and the Bene Gesserit. But the way that it interfaces with the worms is fascinating, which is essentially this. So on Earth, in the really complicated environment here, organisms evolve like the five senses, like vision, hearing, scent, touch, as well as intelligence to back it all up and to process everything that they're looking at. On Dune, most of these senses are not that useful in the undifferentiated deserts. And so with no real purpose for evolving most of these other senses, or intelligence for that matter, because intelligence isn't something that can actually be employed to predict where they should go or what they should do. In order to survive, the sandworms evolved something else, which is prophecy. So whereas on Earth, organisms evolved intelligence, which can be really effective, but can't really see the future. On Arrakis, the worms evolved prophecy to not have to think about the future or process or imagine, but to just know, right? So in other words, if you were to go into the mind of a sandworm, what you would find is the equivalent of somebody who is extremely superstitious. So somebody who's always thinking, I have to go to the south of the planet as was prophesied, right? I have to avoid that stretch of desert because there's a danger there as was prophesied. The best nutrients are up towards the poles right now, so I have to travel towards the poles as the prophecy predicted. All sandworms are prophets. And the reason why the spice melange is such an important substance in the Dune universe is that it shares that essence of being able to predict things through prophecy with anyone who imbibes it, which is why not only is it important in Paul's awakening and also in Jessica's awakening, but this is also why it's so useful for the Spacing Guild. The Spacing Guild is built around a fundamental problem. They're trying to resolve this one issue, this one question, which is, would you still love me if I was a worm? Yes. The actual issue with respect to navigation they're facing, though, has to do with the nature of faster-than-light travel, where the faster-than-light ships of the Spacing Guild have this problem that normally, in order to detect any kind of threat ahead of time, you'd only be able to use tools that would effectively work at the speed of light, like intercepting light particles or gravity waves. And so they have this problem that the way that they travel, they could run into threats before they actually knew that they were there. And so the Spacing Guild uses the spice melange in order to be able to predict threats before they would normally be able to know what was going on. This is why exposure to the spice melange is so important for the Spacing Guild navigators. It even explains why, as they get older, they have a body that's more and more vermiform, which is to say worm-like. The way that the Spacing Guild navigates is actually similar to the way the sandworms do, meaning that just as the sandworms move through the sea of sands, the Spacing Guild moves through the sea of stars. This also explains why the Spacing Guild has a limited ability to see the future in politics, although obviously not as good as what Paul would one day be capable of, meaning that their own program is actually almost like a dead-end version of the search for the kind of abilities that Paul would one day have. In the end, I think that Dune reflects Frank Herbert's take on the true nature of prophecy, which he then put into his book. Prophecy gives society the ability to break out of the cycles it's been moving through. It can be uplifting to see the prophecy fulfilled, to see society begin to bypass some of its issues. As you get into the later Dune books, though, and the broader Dune series, you can see that prophecy can trap people up too. If you know everything is going to happen ahead of time, then there's no real agency, there's no real story. Prophecy can't replace the mind. This connects with Dune's real take on prophecy. Prophecy can guide you. Prophecy can assist you. But if you stop thinking, if all you do is follow prophecy around all day, then you're little more than a worm with its head stuck in the sand.